Principal at Radnor High School. Thanks for coming out this evening. Obviously a very important topic for many of us is that daunting transition from childhood to adulthood in about a second. At least that's what it seems. But hopefully a lot of those myths will be dispelled tonight and some information will be given. I'd like to introduce Ms. Haley Butler, Assistant Principal at Radnor High School, and she will begin the introductions of the panel.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I know how difficult it is to get out in the spring to attend presentations. First, I'd like to thank our ASK committee, which is the Alliance for Safe Kids. This is a group of parents that work with me monthly to pick topics that are relevant to our student body, and this one is important for us with our students transitioning in the next year, 2 years, or 3 years to that college level. So thank you to them, and also thank you to REACH for their partnership as well with us throughout the years and the presentations that they have presented. Tonight, we are very, very lucky to have the panelists behind us that have come out from various different colleges to share, and 2 former students who we are very proud of behind me as well. To my left, we have Shelby Sedorkowski. She is the Director of New Student Programs at Westchester University. Next to her is Dr. Michael Blanche. He is a drug and alcohol specialist that works both with Bryn Mawr College and Westchester University. Next to him, I have Gemma Duffy, former graduate who is now a Temple Owl. And I also have Michael Superdock with us, who is at Swarthmore College. Starting down on the right-hand side, we have Dr. Stacy Andes, who is Director of Health Promotions at Villanova University. Next to her, we have Jody Robinson, Regional Director of Admissions for the University of Penn. And next to her, and last but definitely not least, from my alma mater, Daniel Brown, Director of Residence Life at Penn State, and he's at Penn State Berks. So without further ado, we're going to start with Dr. Andes.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting Villanova to participate in this evening's presentation. I'm very happy to represent the university, and hopefully some of the information that I'll share with you will give you some additional things to be thinking about and talking about with your student as they enter this next chapter. So I just want to talk, and it will be very briefly, so I'm happy to answer questions later this evening. But Villanova sort of takes a graduated approach to a student's first year at Villanova, and that even begins before a student arrives on our campus. There are a number of ways that we reach out to our students over the summer months. One of those is through our orientation program. We actually do not meet over the summer for orientation. We actually meet with them the 4 days before the first day of classes. So it's critical for us to start a relationship with our students before they arrive on our campus. And we do that in a couple different ways. One is through the orientation counselors, and then another is through an online alcohol education program called Alcohol EDU for College. And it's something that all of our first-year students have to complete before they arrive on campus for orientation. So that's just a component that we think is very important to establish that relationship before they arrive. And then day 1 on campus is new student orientation, which again are those first 4 days before the semester begins. And we actually have activities both for the first-year students and their parents to acclimate students to the campus, to give them an opportunity to ask questions of the key resources and resource people on campus as they start to get settled. And then many of you have probably heard resident assistants, RA. They're a critical component of a Villanova student's first year, and that really starts happening from the moment they arrive on campus. And there are a number of organized meetings and activities that students will experience with the other hallmates that they have. And that's orchestrated typically by the resident assistants. And that's to sort of set expectations for the year, to acknowledge some of the challenges and transitions that might come up in the first year, and start linking students to the resources. And ultimately, that RA ends up being a primary resource for that student when they sort of don't know where to go or ask a question. I always encourage first-year students to start with their RA. And then something that I think is very unique to Villanova are under the living and learning elements. And so as our students get through their first year, there are a number of opportunities that they can take advantage of. So that we have themed learning communities. So when a student signs up for housing, they have an opportunity to say, I would love to live in a themed learning community, which is I will live with other students who are interested in healthy living, environmental health, arts and theater, leadership, We have quite a number of themed communities, and students can opt into those. And by participating in that, they live in the same residence hall with those other students. They take a first-year student class together, and then they take a seminar course, some of which are taught like staff like myself at Villanova, around that acclimation period of the first year, and it's through the lens of those different themes. And so many of our students who do the learning communities will always say to incoming students, you have to do a learning community, you have to do a learning community. You can't build that kind of community anywhere else, and it's a great opportunity to really build relationships with some of the faculty and staff who teach that as well. And then the last component that I want to mention before talking about some other particular topics is something we call house call. And we have instituted a program within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the semester. Teams of faculty and staff go out to all of the freshman residence halls, and they go door to door and they do a house call. And they check in with every Villanova first year student and ask how their transition is going, academically, socially. Are there resources that they need or want? And we actually take note of what all of those things are, and we filter all of those concerns and questions to the appropriate people on campus within a week of the house call program. It's a pretty big undertaking, but it's something that has really worked well and helped our freshmen feel part of the community, cared about as part of the community, and really linked up with those key resources that they might need at that point in time. And if nothing else, if they don't have any concerns and are having a great experience, they've met just another person or two to whom they can link with further. And then really important to us is to stay in touch with our parents and let them know sort of what's happening around campus, what are some common issues or transitional topics that they might see their son or daughter going through at that particular time of year. And we do that through an online newsletter called Frosh It News for the freshman parents and Soph It News for the sophomore parents. And then all of our parents get a monthly Parents Connection newsletter. So there are a number of things that we introduce in that first year, and we continue through their 4 years at Villanova. So we were asked to address some common transitional concerns. So I just want to move through a number of these and what Villanova does to try to address them throughout the first year. It's very important for any student, but certainly for our students, to feel that they have found a niche or a place on campus. And for some students, that takes a week. For other students, it takes their entire first year. For other students, it takes longer than that. So we really try to build in some opportunities so that they can get acclimated and find some sort of connection or link on campus. And so we do that through a number of ways, as you can see here. Some of the things that we've learned about our students is most of them are coming from high school experiences where they have been very involved in leadership roles. They've done lots of service, so they're very engaged, and so they're looking for that when they come to campus. So they're competing with other like-minded, engaged students, and so that process is can be very competitive, and it can be very disheartening sometimes to first-year students. And so what we've tried to do to combat that is to create some first-year student-only leadership positions. So they're only competing among a pool of other first-year students, and so their odds of getting involved with different things are much higher. So, for example, Special Olympics is a huge event and program at Villanova. Most of our students want to get involved in some way, shape, or form during their time. So we have created freshman-only opportunities to be involved in that event. We also have leadership development series programs to groom students to become leaders, knowing that they probably won't get those leadership roles in their first year. And so there are opportunities to sort of build a leadership resume at Villanova that will increase their chances of getting more involved in leadership roles during their time. And then as you can see here, we have lots of other organizations and opportunities for students to kind of find their niche and grow and learn through their different activities. Time management. It's certainly one of the most common issues, and it cuts through almost anything else that we see our students for. In my office, we deal with all of the health education and outreach and prevention work. And almost always we're tying back their eating healthy, their exercise habits, their sleep, all somehow ties back to time management. So we offer lots of different things, and I say we as a campus, not necessarily my area, from workshops that focus on time management, but also we have a learning support services office that works with all students, but they're certainly a home for students who are coming with documented learning disabilities as well. and they work very closely with those students, particularly around some of the things you see here, study scheduling, test anxiety, but also in working with faculty and making sure that they have appropriate time allotment for exams, and some accommodation when time comes for scheduling as well. And then certainly there's lots and lots of one-on-one opportunities for students, but most notably through my office, a student can meet one-on-one with a staff member and talk about managing their time in terms of some of their health issues and concerns and questions, and then learning support services in terms of their academics. So on to academics. We always reinforce, particularly with our first-year students, that they utilize their professor's office hours. On every professor's syllabus is a list of days and times that they are guaranteed to be available in their offices. And I cannot encourage students enough to take advantage of those, if for nothing else, to introduce themselves personally, maybe after class or at an office hour, and just make sure that there's some sort of link or connection, and then build a relationship with those professors who you develop a particular connection with. Professors really enjoy students who take time outside of class to take a time to introduce themselves and really engage. So I can't emphasize enough that students take advantage of that. And because we have relatively small class sizes for the most part throughout Villanova, there is an opportunity to really build those relationships with faculty. And so we think that's a very important part to encourage our students to do. The other piece I'd like to highlight is every college at Villanova, there are 4 undergraduate colleges. They all have their own student counselor and advising programs, and those students are trained and are students in the same college. They will meet one-on-one with students as they're getting ready to register for their spring classes and help guide them in terms of the kinds of credits, kinds of classes, and academic choices that they have, electives, as they move into their spring semester. So that also helps give them a student perspective and support. There's a lot on the slide, and I have left some information here, so if you're particularly interested in this, but I do just want to emphasize that we really focus on encouraging students to become self-advocates, to really understand their resources, to seek out the support that they need, and to really take advantage of what's available to them. And so that's, at Villanova, that is through things like tutoring centers, writing centers. We actually require all of our first-year students to utilize the Writing Center at least once in their first year, so they have some interaction and experience with that. Learning support services, again, will help students organize study groups that are specific to their courses. So, for example, I gave the example of anatomy and physiology for nurses. Students are learning material that they may not quite know how to study for and prepare for exams in the way that they're tested in college. And so what Learning Support Services does is helps try to match their study strategies with their majors and the courses that they're taking and group students together who are sort of working on that together. And then again, some of the common academic accommodations that you can expect at Villanova would be some of the things you see here, from extra time on tests, speech-to-text service, text-to-speech services, tests in alternative format. All of those things are negotiable for a student with documented learning disabilities as they acclimate to campus. Roommate conflict. This is one that can be very, very challenging. Our philosophy at Villanova is, as you can see here, we encourage them, or we actually require them in their first year to complete a roommate contract that their RA works through with them and holds. We strongly believe in conflict management versus room change. So if a student comes with a concern, we're going to exhaust all possibilities of working through the conflict that might exist in that room before a room change is given. So that is absolutely part of our learning process and our development process. We also offer substance-free housing options that students can sign up for. And then also, I think it's important for students to know that their RAs are great resource support people. They are disciplinarians. They do enforce the policy as well. But they are so important for our students who have concern either about their own mental or emotional health or a friend's mental or emotional health. And at Villanova, an RA can write what's called a letter of concern that goes to a chain of folks on campus who are alerted if there is a student of concern, so that the university can respond with support to that student and make sure that student is getting the support that they need on campus. With that said, and I'm just about done here. Emotional health. If we do have concern about a student, our primary resource, as on most campuses, is our University Counseling Center. And ours happens to be staffed with 8 full-time doctoral level psychologists, 2 part-time psychiatrists, and we have several doctoral fellows. And they provide individual and group counseling. And we offer specifically a first-year transition counseling group just for first-year students that always fills up. It's just something we found other students want to connect with other students in the same boat, and this is one way that they're able to do that. The only thing I'll mention on the common issues here that I think we have seen growing in numbers recently is the last bullet with the illusion of Facebook. Many of our students are really struggling with seeing their friends seeming to have a much better time on their campuses because they're basing it on the posts and pictures that their friends are posting. And in some ways, our students feel that they need to up the ante, so to speak, of their own experience, or somehow they're not having the kind of college experience that their friends are. And so that can be really emotionally challenging for students, and they can also make some decisions that we're not so thrilled about because they're trying to match up to what they think maybe their friends are experiencing on other campuses. We do have a reputation of being called Villa No Fun. So our students have a little bit of get a little competitive about that because they don't want to be known as Villa No Fun, so they compensate in ways that we're not always thrilled about. And so Facebook fuels that. So just as a little aside, I don't think most people think about that. And we've already talked a little bit about student engagement, so there are lots of opportunities for our students to get involved. The Triple Crown at Villanova is if you participate in Special Olympics, Blue Key Society, and New Student Orientation. Those are very reputable and coveted positions on campus. And then last but not least, I didn't want to go without mentioning alcohol. It's a critical issue that we address in our first year and through a student's 4 years at Villanova. There are a number of ways that we do that. I had mentioned Alcohol EDU for College, which they complete before coming to Villanova. And we feel strongly that every student complete this, whether they drink or not. Because even if they are non-drinkers, they're going to encounter students who are drinking. And so they need to be aware of what some of those scenarios might be, how they might respond, what the resources are at Villanova so that they're equipped to handle those situations. And then basics is another critical one, and that's an opportunity for students who have concern about their own behavior. They can actually meet one-on-one with a member of my staff and talk about strategies to reduce the risk if they are drinkers. And so that's one opportunity for them to do that as well. There are lots of other fun things here. Like I said, I left some information in the back, so if you're particularly interested in anything I didn't discuss specifically or you want to ask about at the end, I'm happy to talk more about. So thank you very much, and I think we're going to invite someone else up. Okay, thank you.
Hi again, my name's Jody Robinson, and unlike Stacy, who is clearly a fabulous expert about counseling and counseling services, I'm really a gatekeeper at Penn as a person in the admissions office. So I come to you tonight to talk with you a little bit about programming, but I also come from a parent perspective. I have 3 children. My oldest is a freshman in college. I have a 10th grader and a 6th grader. And it's a fascinating process that you're in right now. And so I come to you, again, from a little bit different perspective. So just to give you an idea, throughout my son's search and involvement, I walked that delicate line of being a parent who wanted to do substance abuse education, but didn't want to put that extra pressure on my kid to say, I'm the parent saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and you're already a pastor's kid. So, you know, it's like the double whammy. So again, I really come from the perspective as a parent. I really like you to think of this as a 4+ year journey. For some of you and for some students, it won't be 4 years. It will be non-traditional, and that's okay. At Penn, we have this fabulous group of students who have always really been known and loved from their high school, and so the transition to being with other incredibly high achievers is huge. We have excellent resources, which I'll talk about a little bit, but it's the first time in their lives for many of them that they're really not top dog, and that transition is again, big. We talk a lot with our students about the the commonsensical differences between high school and college. A roommate. Most of them have never shared a room. And that's a huge transition. Again, simple things that make a big difference. And how do you adjust, and what are the processes to go through conflict resolution and getting along with a roommate? Eating food that's strange to you. Again, healthy living, balance, making sure you're eating well, not having too much spending money so that you eat junk food and don't use your meal plan. Again, commonsensical things. We talk a lot. Our orientation program at Penn is 6 days long, and I'll talk again in a few minutes about the details of that and why we've extended it over the years. We also talk a lot about time management and free time. It's a beautiful thing to come with a blank slate, but it's also incredibly jarring. The first month my son was at school, we Skyped with him, and I can't encourage you enough to utilize Skype. We know as parents and kids, within a couple minutes of seeing someone, you get a really pretty good litmus test of how your child or your parent's doing. And I'm the worrywart in my family, and my husband's even keel, and my son was very mellow. And this is a kid who's high energy, go, 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 active, active, and he was very melancholy. And my husband sort of, after we hung up and said goodbye, he pressed the panic button a little. Oh my gosh, who are his affinity groups? How are his classes going? He doesn't seem happy. Is he eating well? His hall's really loud. Is he sleeping? Blah, blah, blah. I said, let's just give it a couple more weeks and see if he can connect. And sure enough, again, it does take 4 to 6 weeks for that adjustment. Almost all of us are in the college venue are very attuned to helping them plug in and find new affinity groups. We don't want them to have choice overload, so they join everything, but a couple avenues to find one other friend. That's all it takes. One other friend to really hang out with and do some fun things with. And again, the variety of fun is going to depend on your child and their, what they really define as fun. There are tremendous resources at a place like Penn, but it's very difficult sometimes for our students to, one, admit they need help, two, actually ask for help, and then follow through with getting help. And we talk a lot about that in orientation, about the process, whether it's residence life, your academic advisor. We also have 4 colleges at Penn, so you have a college advisor and then you have a major advisor. So we do try to connect them right away with adults. In the residence life, they're going to have an upperclassman who does group activities, and they are a big part of the orientation process. So there's some great ways to connect and begin mentoring processes. I also want you to think of the process, too, as you're considering colleges, and ask lots of questions. We spend lots of money on our websites providing you with lots of information. Do take an opportunity to read them and really plug into not just, is this a good fit for my child, but what are the resources on campus and what's the flexibility if and when they change their mind. There's a national statistic that says 50% of the kids who enter college change their major before they graduate, and that's just once. And that can be a huge transition for students to think in their mind that they always wanted to study a certain discipline and then find another area or perhaps not find success in that discipline. So again, lots of academic counseling that goes on and discussion. The advice, again, many avenues in the residence, through clubs and activities, through student orientation, and so on. If I don't say it 10 times, then remind me, communicate, communicate, communicate. And this is your child's responsibility. This is not yours. You should not be calling their faculty members. Only if they have a medical or emotional emergency and you need to be in touch with them. Otherwise, you should not be calling them, talking with them about assignments or papers. It happens. Unfortunately, it's happening more than it used to. I think in our generation, it never happened. But it's different. And as a concerned parent, I again encourage you to utilize the university resources, get the information you need, but allow your child to self-advocate. And begin that as early as you can. Again, it will help them for that healthy transition. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the orientation that we have, because our students come from 106 different countries from all 50 states, and so diversity is a beautiful thing, but the definition of diversity it can be something that divides. And so what we hope our students will do is come with an open mind to respect others with differences than themselves. And it's going to occur with their roommate, it's going to occur in their classroom, with students who live very differently than they do, value different things that they do, but again, they have to live together in community. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that we really recommend freshmen take advantage of, we have 10,000 undergraduates and 10,000 grad students. We have about 2,500 entering freshmen. 75% of our classes have 25 or fewer students in them. So for a relatively large university, there's lots of small classes. But there's nothing like a freshman seminar where they're capped at 12 students. And we strongly recommend that our students take advantage of them. You sit with a standing faculty member and 12 other students with great discussions, either that meets once a week for 3 hours or twice a week for an hour and a half. And the engagement and dialogue that can happen in an experience like that. Most campuses have freshman seminars. Again, think about that. Think about the small class size right away. They will have some big classes. A big class at Penn is 150 to 200 students. They've probably never experienced that in high school. So again, what do you do if you didn't quite understand the lecture? How do you seek out help? The first stop is always a faculty member or the preceptor or the teaching assistant who assists in study sessions. But the kids, they need to be able to utilize the resources there academically. And again, time management, staying up with their work. Again, something that you might take for granted, but I forgot, some of these students are only going to be tested 3 times a semester in a class or have 2 big papers. They're used to a lot of feedback. And it's a real shock at first when you're not getting a lot of feedback. Or you thought you knew what the professor wanted and you get that first test or paper back and it's not the result you wanted. Again, the first time for many students. So what to do about that when that happens? And we talk with them a lot in orientation about that and also in keeping up on material and so on. So again, it sounds like nuts and bolts stuff, but these commonsensical things can really make or break their feelings of success. So we have some fabulous resources on campus for undergraduates. The creative writing program, they're free writing consultants, so when students are getting ready to present that first paper, they can come in and get great feedback. And we do really encourage that. We have Kelly's Writers House on campus where we have 300 free and public projects where students can be a part of that. They may not have an interest in writing, but to know, again, that's a resource for them. We have a tutoring center on campus. It's staffed by peers and faculty, teaching assistants, and also learning instructors. We have something called the Gardner Learning Resource Center, and there's 2 elements that you should know about. One is the Office of Learning Resources, which really focuses on reading, writing, and study habits. We also have a special division for students with disabilities, be they hearing, vision, what have you, physical, and they work very closely with our students on a large campus like Penn's to be able to navigate carefully. Again, these services are free to students, amazing resources, but again, it's giving them a nudge to really take advantage of them. So our orientation program is 6 days long, and the students arrive on campus this year. They're going to arrive on August 30th, again, from all over. So the beautiful thing is, for our kids coming from abroad, they get to hopefully get over their jet lag and begin to get a nice rhythm. Students begin to find their best places to eat. Begin to seek out where they'd really like to find a quiet space to study. Or maybe not so quiet, they don't mind the distractions. But to begin to really get a comfort level with the campus. During new student orientation, some of the activities include talking about traditions. Penn has some really fun, unifying traditions on campus. If you don't know anything about Penn, we sing a toast to dear old Penn, but it's not to alcohol, it's toast we throw on the football field. And one of the creative students created a toast Zamboni to clean up the toast. So again, they're quirky kids. But we talk a lot about socials and what are social options on campus. Non-alcoholic, the idea that in the state of Pennsylvania, the drinking law is 21. Drinking age, and so it's important to know that we have a 24/7 police/security force who is there, with their first purpose to keep students safe, but also they do follow through with, are you 21 or not? And so that's important to know. And we talk about the library use and availability, about resources about health, sexuality, health education, and sexual assault information, safe living. The kids will take placement exams. They'll talk about credit. They'll meet with their advisor and get their schedule tidied up. They'll explore Philadelphia. There'll be a whole need to know, what you need to know to be a successful Penn student. There's a large student activities fair. There's something like 400 different student organizations, which sounds great, but then you think, how do I choose? And what we do encourage students to pick a couple, try them out, and then go from there. Most of them, some require auditions, others are seasonal, but we do feel and find that the most well-adjusted students are ones that get involved pretty quickly. There's performing arts night. There's opportunity to meet with your residence hall. You have faculty dinners. So there's, again, lots of fun and action that goes on. The governance, we also talk a lot about student life and the governance at Penn. And like Stacy was talking about, those opportunities for leadership are something that the students are very interested in. There are class boards. There's a residence advisory board. There's social planning and events committee. We have Student Activities Council, Student Committee on Undergraduate Education. There's an undergraduate student assembly. Again, the plethora of events for students to pursue. I think, again, I think certain things that are really helpful for students and that we encourage through our student life is to have some structure and routine. Time management is huge. When you consider they're in class 6 or 7 hours, 5 days a week, and they come to college campus and they have anywhere from 12 to 16 hours of class, and a lot of work, but also a tremendous amount of free time. To help have some structure to that, we talk a lot with them about that in new student orientation. The stress of finances and the cost of college can be huge on families, and so that's an annual process at every university. And so we talk with students because we want them to be at Penn and understanding that this is a privilege to be a student here and taking advantage of things, but also if a family crisis does occur, that the university's desire is to see them graduate successfully, and so they do respond to life. Life happens, and so, again, our hope is that students will, to be successful adults, they'll be flexible, they'll be nimble, they'll be open-minded, and they'll be considerate and kind. A very telling admitted student event, we had a student panel, and one of the girls in the audience who was admitted but hadn't quite made up her mind about which college to attend, she asked our board, we have 5 current students sitting on a panel, and she said, well, my understanding is that, if you go to the Wharton School, it's mostly boys, mostly men, and it's really cutthroat, and the kids are mean. Why would I want to come to a place like Penn? And the young woman from Wharton on the panel said, well, I'm not really any of those. Those are myths. Help your children, help yourself demystify the process. Find out what it's like to be a student day in and day out. Understand attrition. Do 50% of the students not graduate? What's the support? Again, ask a lot of questions. And if you don't have a weekly quote-unquote date set up with your kid, do that. Don't text them while they're in class. It's distracting. But so, again, common considerations that is really what I'm all about. And I wish you all the luck as you look and find. With 3,000 colleges and universities, you and your child can find a very happy home. But it is a journey, and it's a wonderful adventure, but it is a journey, and they're going to hit some spots. They're going to get sick for the first time when they're away from home, and you want to know, is there a health center they can go to? How's their RA going to help? Because, it stinks when you're sick and you're away from home. So it's, again, some of those common things if you sort of talk through. And I don't know about you. One of my sons is a huge talker, and the other one, I'm pulling teeth to get anything out of him. But if you can set up some routine and some structure so that you're touching base and having a face-to-face with them, I think that can really help in their success. And the universities certainly are there for a resource. But the hope is that your child will be their own self-advocate. So thank you for your time. Good luck with the process, and I'll answer any questions later.
Hi, I'm Dan Brown. I am not the author of the Da Vinci Code, but I will be glad to sign books afterwards if anybody has any. When I was transitioning to college, I didn't know I was going to have to resign myself to get reading glasses. So I have trouble walking upstairs with them at this point. So I got the most ridiculous ones I could get. So everybody can laugh at this portion. I'm not in admissions. I'm not in admissions. I'm in Residence Life. That's my job. I'm the director of Residence Life. So I always say I'm the software person. My office deals with software. Housing deals with hardware as far as bricks and mortar, contracts, housekeeping, maintenance. And my department, Residence Life, is luckily enough, we're software. We deal with the people that live within those four walls. So that's what I do every day of the week and for a couple more weeks coming up. Not that I'm looking forward to a break at all, but that's what we'll be doing right up until finals week. So that's what my office does, is we support students right where they live. We're fairly intrusive. We like to know what students are doing. We check in on them a lot, and we have our residence assistants at Penn State Berks that check in. And, we see students where they live every day. We are gauging, we know students well enough through club activities. We have 805 students that live on Penn State Berks campus. So even with 805, we know our students. We're able to have a conversation with them. We know them through club activities. So we're big enough for the resources, but we're small enough. And I'm not here to sell you on Penn State today. I always say Penn State will sell itself. The best thing you can do is make that list of the 6 colleges you want to visit, the 3 colleges you want to visit, and go visit. Those colleges, you're going to go, and your student's going to get a feeling and go, I fit here at this college. So I'm not here to sell you on Penn State, but despite that, I did bring brochures. So I did bring one for the Office of Residence Life. This reviews our special living options at Penn State Berks. It also just tells a little bit about what the Residence Life staff does. I have a Penn State brochure and then the Berks brochure. We are part of the Penn State family. We have 20 undergraduate campuses. So Penn State Berks is the closest campus to you that has housing, that has on-campus housing. But there are 19 other locations, so some of your students might say, I want to be with 45,000 other students at University Park. That's the setting that's going to work for them. Some students may say, I want to be at Penn State Beaver with 600 students, and that's where, and I'm kind of partial because I'm from Beaver. So, but there's a lot of options in the Penn State system. I want to talk to you tonight, just in general, a lot of parents here. We use a book in our student affairs classes, and the panel might be familiar with Greg Blimling. I always get his name wrong, but he talks a lot about the transition issues that students are going to face, and they all hold true for our first year students. And I just wanted to review some of those with you, some things that you could be aware of. There's not a lot for me to say. The panel covered it so well beforehand, but I'll do my best. Socialization, we always tell our resident assistants and our student leaders 6 weeks is the magic number. When a student arrives on campus, they have 6 weeks to make that connection with someone else, with a roommate, with a club, with a faculty or staff member. Those first 6 weeks are so crucial to getting them through the rest of the semester. Now, at the day after 6 weeks, we don't say, well, they're good, now we can put our feet up. But we really, through Penn State, those first 6 weeks, we really front load on activities, on going to visit students one-on-one, because that's where they're getting into the college career. And in those first 6 weeks is where the habits form. Your students' habits are going to form in the first 6 weeks. When do they eat? When do they study, if ever? When do they go to the dining facilities? When do they participate in sports? So during those first 6 weeks, you're going to want to make sure, if you're checking in with your student, ask, what's your daily schedule? Because that really is a critical time for students. One mistake college students make when they get to college is they say, I'm an observer. I'm going to stay back and I'm going to watch and see I'm going to stand back and watch what goes on. And I'm going to see where I fit in. And a lot of students honestly miss the boat because they say, I'm going to step back and I'm going to see where I fit in. I'm not quite sure. And they never gain full membership, so to speak, into the institution. So that's why we say in the first 6 weeks, we want them to be involved in clubs. Not over-involved. Academics is always first. but we want them to find that niche where they fit, because if they just stand back, by the time week 7 comes or mid-semester, those students are it's a lot harder for me to get involved in a club because I didn't do it from the beginning. So I would encourage, pick that one activity that they're interested in and get them involved. A break in parent-child relationship. That's going to be really hard for some parents. Sometimes it's harder on the parents than it is the student. At Penn State, we always encourage a parent to call our office. Never get upset talking to a parent if they call our office. But what parents need to realize is in public education, in the higher education, we have FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So I'm always welcome to hear a mother say, Mr. Brown, I'm really concerned about my son. He just doesn't seem to be getting involved with his friends. He doesn't seem to be, and I'll say, thank you for the information. Please I'm going to promise you I'm going to look into it. I can't confirm, oh, I just saw your son. I can't confirm what your son's up to. But I always like to have that heads up, and we go through the RAs, through us, and that student may never know we checked in with them. It might just be, hey, what are you doing? I like that poster on your wall. What have you been up to? So that gives us a heads up. And they might never know that you called. Now there are releases that you can sign, so I don't mean to be flippant that just call and let us know. Students can sign releases, but there is only a certain amount of information we can share. But I always encourage parents to call and let us know, but don't expect miracles. Sometimes we're working behind the scenes. Self-esteem needs. A first-year student's going to come in and say, I know everything, I don't need help, I got this. Because I think it was mentioned earlier, they go from big fish in a little pond at high school, and they might be a small fish in a really big pond. So they come in, they know everything, I got this, I don't need help, I don't need the learning center. So we work really hard to connect them to those resources. And those are things that you can be aware of too, that sometimes first-year students don't like to admit. And I had to make a big admission today when I called for directions. Just as simple as calling for directions. As a Pittsburgh kid, I learned the term mainline this week. But first-year students might not ask for directions. They might just act like, they got this, we're good. So during those first 6 weeks, half of a semester, make sure you're checking in academically. Your students' grades at Penn State are not automatically going to be sent to you. That has to be something you have to set up. The bill is not automatically sent to you. So when they say, well, where's the bill? Oh, that was emailed to me. I'm sorry, I didn't send that to you. So those are things at your institution. Make sure how you get grades, how you get billing. That's something that can be a problem. Roommates were talked about. At Penn State, we do not do roommate matching. Students will come in and say, how do we match up roommates? And we do not do roommate matching. We try to keep first years with first years, upper class with upper class, because we would have to have a 50-50 match of night people who like country music, we'd have to have 50-50 to match everybody up. So you're not always going to be matched with somebody that's perfect. And that's the fun and why you're going to live in a residence hall at a college campus, because that's part of the learning experience. We always try to mediate, communicate, get all those through. Room switches, as was said earlier, is something that is one of the last things. But I will have parents call and demand a room switch, because they'll speak for their parent and say, my son hates his roommate and they can't get along. Number one concern with roommate conflicts that I see every day, I hate my roommate. What's going on? I don't know. What's the problem? Well, she keeps the light on when I'm trying to study. Have you told her? No. But I sent her a text last week. So in the world of instant gratification and communication, we might text each other from if someone's in the dining hall and the room, but we encourage those face-to-face. And you laugh, but it is true. 99% of our roommate conflicts are just minor communication issues. I didn't know you wanted me to do that. Well, thank you for telling me, and they get worked out. So, that's how we approach roommate. The academic adjustment, time management, I will say it again because it's probably one of the biggest challenges first-year students face, but there are resources out there. Just have to know. When you visit your college of choice, ask about what resources are available for time management. Homesickness, that can be something that comes up. Some people say, when I was a young kid, I was sick when I had to go home, so I didn't understand. But there will be students that are facing homesickness and don't want to say anything. And that's normal. Don't get mad. Don't get, it is something that makes them ill. It can stop them from eating. It can make them depressed. So really look into that, and that is something that is a reality. Don't just say, well, you got to do this, because it can. It can change. It can really make it hard on them. And that goes along with broken relationships. Your students are going to find friendships aren't going to be the same when they get home from their winter break. Boyfriend, girlfriend, those might go away during that first semester. They might come home and they might be a little different. They might have new interests. So know that they are exploring values. They are developing, and know what to embrace. Because you're a student, you can say, I can embrace a mohawk. I can let that one go. But drinking, I can't. And then be frank and say, look, we need to have a conversation about that. So I'd say know what to embrace, know what to really, let them know that it's not all right. Setting those limits. All students make their own choices, as was said earlier. A professor's not going to, knock on their room door and say, hey, noticed you haven't been in your first year seminar for the last couple weeks. Students make their own choices. But know at every institution, anyone that you choose, there's going to be lots of support. You just have to ask for it. It might not necessarily show up on your door. I might show up on your door at Penn State Berks and be able to offer resources, but just know what resources are available. And I did want to let you know that it might come to a shock for some of the students in the room here, but there are consequences for behavior. I think some people have seen too many reruns of Animal House, and they go, woo, we're going to get that shirt that says college, and we are in. This is going to be just fun. You'd be better off renting an apartment and working at McDonald's if that's the kind of life you wanted to have. But you're here. You want to see what's going on. You want to better yourself. You want to get an education. You're paying a lot of money at any institution, so you want to take academics seriously. But there are unfortunately consequences. Lower grades can result in loss of financial aid down the road. So it's not uncommon for a first semester to be a little rocky at best. But if that continues, financial aid can get lost. Discipline cases, they can have unfortunate effects. We always look at it at Penn State. We focus on learning, helping. We may require counseling. We may require treatment as we're here about alcohol and drug use. Those are realities on every college campus. I'm not going to pretend they're not. But we take that educational approach. We're going to work with that student to get them treatment, to help them. We're here for education, so any discipline is education. We try to take that approach with it. But some students they will face that letter that says you're no longer welcome at a campus, and that's a reality. I don't mean to scare you as parents, but we don't bury our heads in the sand and say, well, we'll just keep pushing them through, because we have to think about the entire community. So just know, academics are serious, but there are negative consequences as well. Not that I want to dwell on those too much. I will say, at Penn State Berks, if you say, you know what, that Dan Brown guy was pretty cool, I'm going to go to Penn State Berks because I want to see him on a daily basis. If you were thinking about Penn State Berks as a choice, I just want to give you one tip. Penn State Berks, it's the 5th largest of the Commonwealth campuses. We are a very popular campus, which is a blessing and a curse. We have 805 spots on campus. By December of 2012, that's this December, we will be full for housing for August of 2013. So if you're scheduling visits and you say, Penn State Berks is the place for me, I think that's somewhere I want to go, make sure you start that admissions process early, because they do maintain a wait list. That we will help you with off-campus options, but a lot of times for the first-year students, parents say, I want them on campus. If you want that as an option, something you're going to want to look into early, because we will fill up. Okay? Thank you very much.
That was great. Good evening. I'm coming from a completely different angle now. My name's Mike Blanche. You might be surprised that a drug and alcohol specialist is coming out tonight to talk to you about your kids transitioning off to college, but I was really grateful to have this opportunity to come out. I really am happy to be here tonight. I've worked in the drug and alcohol community, and I've been providing direct clinical care for those people that suffer from dual diagnosis and addiction for over 16 years. And I've worked at all levels of drug and alcohol treatment, inpatient, outpatient, and services, as well as for the past 12 or 13 years directly on the campuses of Bryn Mawr College and Westchester University. I helped develop programs nationally as well as locally. So I'm on the front lines of seeing this. So one of the things I'd like to start with tonight is just so you understand why I'm standing across from you, so you hear this basic principle. This came out this year that alcohol and other drugs play the role in about 20% of all college dropouts. That's part of the reason why I'm standing here tonight. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, I'm the guy that's bringing the bad news, just for the record. But I'm a realist, and we're up against a lot of different pieces. And I really liked how the panel interwove the importance of communication, starting off with. And you guys as parents are going to be talking to your kids and getting them ready to go to school. And if not you, who? If not now, when? So having a direct communication about their involvement in drug and alcohol is so vital for their success off on campus. A lot of times they're coming from homes and individuals that some have never even partaked in drinking and using drugs, but then they go off to this campus and they don't have you guys as instant soundboards or the micromanaging parents that sit on top of them. We talked, and you actually were great at mentioning the idea of the hovering parent still kind of progresses off to college now. We're seeing a lot more hovering parents follow them off. But still, the kid is on their own, making their own decisions, as Mr. Brown said, and they're off out there on their own, making their own decisions. So informing them about, their decisional process making around drugs or alcohol. We're up against a $1.4 billion a year industry. We're actually up against, a $16 billion a year industry. That's how much money is spent annually globally on alcohol advertising, lobbyist funds, and product placement. Providing, Coors Light, brought to you by, a fun factor. And so in the U.S. alone, $1.4 billion is targeted to young adults. That's how much money, again, is spent annually on U.S. targeted just to young adults, college-age kids. So any chance I can get to stand across from adults or parents or kids to be preventative, to educate them, to demystify the myth around college party scene, to be a successful young adult, to be out there in campus, in action, and really doing so much more in their community, in their colleges, than drinking. So many kids have that myth, that illusion that as soon as they go off, it'll be, American Pie or whatever the latest, glam is. As well as you brought up a really good point about the impact of Facebook, the impact of technology on adolescent development, how I call it the misinformation highway, and how there's so much misinformation out there. And we used to be up against the great myth of certain parties. Now we're up against the images. And so many kids are trying to compete with each other, and they're trying to show what it looks like and how cool it is to be a part of some type of thing. So they don't take the image picture of 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. or the next day. They don't flash those pictures on Facebook. They're showing you the perfect picture at 8 p.m. before they go out, right? They're not sharing and showing pictures of how they feel and how they think about the next day or the consequences. They're not, posting their statuses, hey, I got another underage. They're only sharing and showing the really cool parts of the party atmosphere. So we really have to educate our young adults. And again, the impact of technology on adolescent development has a lot of other things in play when it comes to dual diagnosis, ADHD, bipolar, and anxiety. You mentioned about texting and communication and how so many kids fall back on the illusion of connection with the internet or with technology. And as an addiction specialist, I'm up against this all the time on the campuses. So I wanted to just kind of share with you a couple basics to understand, when it comes to adolescents and young adults. The reason why across the U.S. that it's important to mention that the drinking age is 21 is how many people in here read the American Journal of Psychiatry May 2003 article? Did you catch that article? Anybody missed that? Okay. So just as a quick aside, your brain is in major neurochemical developmental growth till age 23 for females and 25 for males. In the year 2006, I sat on a national panel to push the legal drinking age back to age 23, 25 years old. we failed because we're up against a $16 billion a year industry, right? But science shows that literally the last part of the brain that fully develops is the frontal lobe of the brain, the decisional process making, your ability to think through things, your ability to make conscious choice. And it's kind of like the desktop manager, and your ability to retrieve memory and pull stuff out. So that's the part of the brain that alcohol and other drugs affect the most. And so why subject the brain to all those things before your brain is fully developed? And so that's why it's illegal to drink. Now, according to statistics and DUIs, that's why it came out first. And then science caught up to our kind of raw kind of gut. As parents, you all look at your kids and be like, wow, they're not really mature. Well, now we see the science behind it. So as a drug and alcohol educator and prevention specialist, I look at, the fact is the earlier they get exposed to drugs or alcohol, the more likely it is they might have a problem later in life. And so college is where a lot of kids get exposed to it. Again, it's their choice. It is not a requirement for freshmen to drink. It's not a requirement for freshmen to get an underage. And, my busiest time of year, everyone mentioned the first 6 weeks. My busiest time of year as a consultant for universities and in private practice is the first 6 weeks, because so many kids go off uninformed, unknowing what the consequences will be. State universities, and by the way, whatever university you look at, any university you look at, in year 2005, I sat with a coalition of COFI, College of Fine Arts Educational Programming, and we looked at all the policies from Penn was involved with it, all up and down the East Coast. It was after the Duke incident. And we looked at all the policies, and every policy across the Eastern Standard were all different when it came to drug and alcohol. And the state of Pennsylvania is one thing, as a Penn State or Westchester, where I'm at, we're tied into the local borough. So if you get an underage on campus, that's tied into the local borough. So you get underage legally. So each policy, each campus has their own drug and alcohol policy. So please, whatever school you look at for your child, educate yourself, educate your kid, look the policy up, because certain universities literally will turn a blind eye and keep it real quiet and deal with it in-house, where other campuses literally, I've done evaluations of kids that have gotten kicked out. I can't say the university. They're not here, don't worry. But that have gotten kicked out of freshman orientation, that never put a foot in class. And so please be real mindful and respectful as you are preparing your kids and getting them ready for school, to not let one event define their college career. Yes, I'm that guy that's coming out that's saying drugs or alcohol are out there. It's on college campuses. And it's how to inform and educate your kid just to have a little bit of edge, a little bit of thoughtfulness as they transition is so vital. When it comes to the disease of addiction or alcoholism, it's recognized by every part of our society, across the globe. But when it comes to, for those people who don't understand, addiction or alcoholism is never about intelligence. It's never about, care. Some of the most intelligent people I know have addiction or alcoholism. So many people think, well, my kid got into a major university, so they might not have an addiction. But the reality is, the greater the intelligence, the greater the defense structure. That's all that plays out a lot of times. So I sit with lawyers, doctors, there's rehabs and programs for all major professions out there. So don't think because they're too intelligent they got into this university they don't have a problem. I'm very busy with certain private educational programs as well as public educational programs. So let it be known, it's not just the great myth of the great big Penn State, you know what I mean? It's not just on that campus that there's alcohol. And again, that's a huge myth. The reality is, to be a successful student, you can't be out partying every night. And so that's another thing to get across. So last couple notes that I just want to share with you. I don't want to take too much time, but I just want to get across 41% of all college academic difficulties are related to drug and alcohol. Every 5 hours, a college student dies from alcohol overdoses. And so you want to spend a Friday or Saturday night, go to the Bryn Mawr emergency room, and just kind of see the amount of kids that come in there. Alcohol or other drug is the number one health problem concerning college-age students. And again, I'm going to end on this. I got one other thing, actually. But again, I can read my notes. I got questions. I have ADD. I call it fun. So, but alcohol or other drugs, again, play the role of 20% of all college dropout rates. The kids that I work with in my private practice setting, that have chemical dependency. So if your child suffers from drugs or alcohol dependency and are in recovery, I just want to let the last note be known that there are advantages to being a recovering adolescent and young adult in the Philadelphia community. As I said, I work on staff at Westchester University. Chester County is nationally known for having a lot of young adults that are in recovery. There's a strong young adult population out there. Do you know there's 17 colleges across the country that are drug or alcohol related, not just, drug or alcohol related rehabs or programs? So not just having a dry campus, but actually a program. There's a program through Hazleton. Hazleton's one of the third best in the country rehabs. Started a program called Step Up at Augsburg University, and that's a 300-bed facility that kids are having, not a facility, I apologize, but a 300-bed program that kids are motivated, clean and sober, working a recovery program, and also college students. So I want to let people know that if your kids have a problem with drugs or alcohol, they can successfully go off to college. Another widely known one doesn't have the best name in the world, Sober College. It's just not the most imaginative, but it's a great school out in Los Angeles, another great mecca of recovering community. So just let parents know, if you are having a child that has struggles with drugs or alcohol, college is an option and it is available. And we do work with a lot of local colleges as well to make sure that they transition really well. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hello. My name is Shelley Sedekowski, and I'm the Director of New Student Programs at Westchester University. One of the programs I work most closely with is the orientation program at Westchester. So what I'm going to do is, you've heard a lot of common themes, and I'm going to try and run through this because a lot of it is very similar to information that you've already heard, and probably because a lot of these themes are what's important. You've heard it from all different types of universities, and it's really the things that we like to stress. And the two things that I'm really going to talk to you about are two of the points that we try and get across during our orientation program for all new students. And also, especially the first one, is what we hear from students. When we ask them, what would you give as advice to incoming students, a lot of it is get involved, get connected to campus. That's probably one of the most important things that helps a student kind of get adjusted and feel comfortable where they're going to be at. So why is it important? You've heard a lot about this today. Meeting people, making friends, feeling a part of campus, helping to find your place somewhere, and all that helps to minimize homesickness. So all of that is kind of why it's important to get involved and connected to campus. What does it mean to get involved? It means different things to different people. So for some people, it's going to be really easy. That's kind of their niche. They really like to put themselves out there. For other people who might be more introverted, that's going to be a big step. That's going to be part of what they're going to learn, how they're going to grow at school doing that. I can talk from personal experience. I am more of an introverted person, and when I went away to college, that was like kind of the big thing for me, was to be able to step outside of my comfort zone and get to meet other people and try and get involved beyond what I did in high school. So you find a lot of students like that, and you'll find people who were super involved in high school who want to continue that involvement, or learn, maybe I was too involved in high school, I want to step back and maybe not get as involved in college. So people do different things, and it's going to mean different things to different people. So for some of them, it could be joining a student organization on campus. For somebody else, it could be just going to the recreation center or the gym on campus, and that's the way they're getting connected to their campus. For somebody else, it's maybe attending a campus program. So it can be all different things. The point is that they're doing something to invest themselves in their community and to get to know what that campus has to offer them. So how? You've heard a lot of different things, and there's a lot of great ways for how students can connect to campus. One of the other programs I work with at Westchester is our freshman interest groups. It's very similar to the learning communities that you heard about earlier, where a student at Westchester, they take 2 classes and they live together in the same residence hall. And the classes meet general education requirements or major requirements and revolve around a common theme. So one might be health and wellness, and they take a writing and a speaking class, which are required for all incoming students, and they live together on the same residence hall floor. It's a way to help them ease their transition in. They get to meet and be around other students, and so they get to know each other a little quicker. And so it just helps to ease that transition, maybe that anxiety of that first day of class, not knowing anybody in that classroom. Other things you've heard about, like sports and service. A lot of studies show students come to college having maybe participated in athletic events and sports their whole life growing up and in high school, or they've done service. A lot of high schools, now maybe require service to graduate. So that's been a part of their life. And so now when they come to college, all of a sudden, well, what do I do with that? So there are tons of opportunities to get involved with those types of things. At Westchester, you have your athletics department, which is Division II, but maybe you don't want to be in athletics from that extent. Well, there's club sports or intramurals, so they all have different levels of competition and ways to get involved. Intramurals is a great, fun way where you can get a group of people together who you live with or are taking classes with and compete and kind of more in a recreation way. For service, a lot of high schools have Circle K clubs. At college, they have that same type of club that a student can get involved with and kind of meet other people who are interested in service opportunities and go out weekly and get engaged in their community to do that. At Westchester, we also have a volunteer fair within the first few weeks of the semester, so they can talk to different agencies within the community that are within walking distance. So if they want to set something up on their own and get involved with them, there's that opportunity. We also have a campus office that's dedicated specifically to service and service learning. Student organizations, another excellent way, from Greek life to media organizations, religious organizations, academic organizations, music, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of different things for people to get involved in. We have more than 230 student organizations at Westchester. Like you've heard before, choices are amazing for students. And the one thing we always say, if you can't find something there that you like, you can create it yourself. So there's this whole process. I know a student right now who's creating a rock climbing club on campus because that's something that she's interested in. We're building a new recreation center at Westchester that's going to have a rock climbing wall. So it's the perfect time and opportunity for her to kind of get some people together who have the same interest as her and create a club that didn't previously exist on campus. Another way is by a campus job. A lot of universities, whether it's through federal work-study, other campus employment, those are other great ways to get connected. You get connected to an office, maybe a faculty or staff member on campus. Another way to get connected, you meet other people, you become invested in the community. There are a lot of paraprofessional opportunities that maybe not right when you get to school as a first-year student you can take advantage of, but throughout that year you can become aware of. So as a sophomore, you're able to participate in them like a resident assistant or an orientation leader or working in the student union or the recreation center. There's a lot of different opportunities out there for students. And you've heard people talk about homesickness. It's natural, it's normal. Every student will experience it to some degree. So the best thing you can do is help encourage them, if they're on campus, to stay on campus. A lot of students want to come home, especially if they're really missing things. Try and encourage them to stay like those first couple weekends, again, so they get to meet other students, take part in different activities that are happening on campus, so that will hopefully help them find that niche on campus that will make them feel more comfortable in getting to know others. It also might help them to get involved because then they kind of are so busy, they forget what they're missing at home. So it helps kind of get them over that maybe initial hump. Talking to their resident assistant, an orientation leader, another student on campus can be of assistance, as well as if it really gets to a level they want to talk to somebody professional, a counseling center. At a lot of different universities, their counseling centers are excellent places for students to go and talk about these kinds of issues. So advocacy. You've heard a lot about that tonight at different places. And really it's important to help your student become his or her own best advocate. They're the ones who are there, and it's more on them in college to seek out their resources. The support is definitely there and available to them, but they need to take those steps to find those. And you can help by kind of helping, if you're aware of the resources, you can help point them in the right direction. So instead of you making that call, like people said earlier, you can kind of suggest to them, help them know how to make that call. So they know maybe what questions to ask, go over that with them, help them think through that process, so that way they're better prepared to do that, and then they're taking that step on their own to take charge of their own education. So it is their education, so that's why we say ask questions. It's their education. They want to get the most out of that experience that they can. Resources, get to know the resources that are available on campus. Whatever campus you're looking at or decide to go to, It's important that both you and your student become familiar with them, especially those things that are most important to you. Everybody here is going to have those one or two things that are important to you, and they might be different from person to person or family to family. So you want to find out what those are for you and ask those questions when you go for a campus visit, when you go for an accepted student day or an orientation, so you get all the answers that you know, and you know what resources where you can find them. So websites are a great avenue to kind of search and kind of be able to locate different things. Again, you want to be able to help guide your students. So if they call you and say, there's nothing to do on campus, I need to come home, you can click on that calendar of events page and be like, well, no, there's this going on. At Westchester, every Friday night, we have Psychs After Dark where there's something going on, and there's prizes that are given away. So you know that there's something, and you can throw that out to them and help kind of counter some of their myths, and again, encourage them to kind of try some other things. One other thing that you want to do is take advantage of, like I already mentioned, the different opportunities that you have to visit campus. So again, that's your opportunity to ask those questions, to get familiar, to get a feel for the place, the people who, if you need to contact somebody, you know where to go on campus. All right, one last slide, just a couple reminders. As you can see, you'll find most colleges and universities offer the same resources. There just might be some little things that are different about them that make them unique to that college or university. Like at Westchester with our tutoring center, it's not walk-in tutoring. So it's something that you sign up for at the beginning of the semester that's a semester-long commitment. And we always tell students at orientation that if you know that you're going to have trouble in a subject, maybe math isn't your strong suit and you're in a math class that first semester, second day of classes when tutoring sign-ups start, go wait in line, sign up for tutoring, and make that commitment until you see how you're doing in that class, and then you have that committed for the whole semester. Other campuses, it might be a walk-in as needed, that you can just kind of go and stop in, and if you need help that particular day, but it's not a commitment. So a lot of campuses have the same resources, just how they package them might be slightly different. So you want to ask the questions so you know the different specifics, so you're better able to help your student know what's out there for them. Again, we all want the same thing for your student. We want them to be successful at school. That's why they were admitted, because we believe that they can be successful and they can graduate. We want them to have that meaningful college experience, to get something out of the experience. We want them to graduate. We want to see them walk across that stage at the end of 4 or 5 years and get that diploma. That's the ultimate goal for everybody. And there are resources and support and help for you and your student if you need it. You aren't out there on an island. Everybody's there, and they want to help you, and they want to be supportive and help make that transition easy and make that time that your student is at that particular university or college a successful and enjoyable experience for all of you. So, thank you.
I guess we'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Michael Superdock. I'm a freshman at Swarthmore.
Hi guys, good evening. My name's Gemma Duffy. I'm a freshman at Temple University. I'll start. I guess we're here tonight just to talk to you a little bit about our personal experiences at college. We're finishing up our freshman year. It's a very different experience coming into college from high school, transitioning. Personally, I go to a school of 24,000 undergrad, so that's a huge number coming from Radnor, which is around 1,200, something like that. So it was a very different experience coming in, living on campus, living in a building with people that you have never met, leaving that group of friends. Personally, I know that I jumped in by dealing with that by getting involved. I'm a member of the marching band. I am also a member of a student professional organization, and I also am now a tour guide. So that's just how I kind of dealt with getting involved, because that really did help me adjust into that, that first period, make new friends, stuff like that. So I don't know. What did you do?
I think it'd be best if we kind of just went one at a time. So I'll let you go ahead and start, and I'll...
That works. All right. Well, so like I said, yeah, I am involved in quite a few things down at school, but I did find that dealing with time is one of the biggest things that you have to deal with. Living in a hall, my floor is co-ed, so people are always out and about. It's really loud. It's really social all the time. And sitting down to do that work in your room, everybody's on a different schedule, so it's completely different to try to like fit in what study schedules match up with different people. So I find that you really have to just go out, bring yourself to the library, pull yourself out of the dorm, just don't tempt yourself to like go hang out with your friends, and really just sit down, do your work, stuff like that, because you are there for class. And it's much different, like I think a couple of you guys said, you might have 1 or 2 tests in the semester, and I'm experiencing that right now. Literally, there's only 1 midterm and 1 final. So there's no homework. He doesn't count participation. Your attendance doesn't matter. It's really that 1 test, those 2 tests that really make or break your grade. So you really do have to find that place. You have to find that niche of dealing with just time management. I mean, it comes with time. Like, I can't say there's anything I did in specific just to like, this works for me. It's a trial and error. Like, try studying my room, but if I know that I want to go talk to my friends, I know that's not going to be the best thing. So going to the library, going to the tech center is something that you can do. And then, I mean, dealing with living in a residence hall, like I said, like you were friends with people in college and where you live for 12, 13 years. You know them your entire life, and now you're thrown in with 48, 50 new people on a floor, and you're supposed to just magically become friends. And I got lucky because my floor is very friendly. Everybody kept their door open, went out, wanted to make that new experience, make new friends. I did have to deal with the roommate thing. Me and my roommate we did not get along. We were roommates, but she actually left. She chose that residence life was not for her, so she left the resident hall, and my RA actually himself did not fulfill the RA duties, so he was fired in October. So it was very difficult dealing with that, dealing with all of this. But now I do have my RA now, and he is amazing. He helps me with everything. I've never ridden the subway when I came down to Temple, and so all the RAs, I'm friendly with all of them, all help you deal with all that. My RA this year got us tickets for the Phillies game. We're going to go to a Phillies game for free. And he really does do a really good job right now, like helping me. I needed to get certified for my major for CPR, and he actually like pointed out where to go. So it is really a good resource to go out and look for and ask for help from them, because they really are there to help you and assist you. And I guess the last thing I want to touch on is that they all said all these resources are available for you. And I found that in high school, it was kind of given to you, like, here you go, like, I strongly advise you to go to get help, whatever, the math center, something like that. But when you're at college, you really have to make the effort to want to go to that tutoring, to want to go to that writing center, to want to go get all of that help, because it is all there, but it's just a matter of telling yourself, okay, this and this and this needs to get done. So, I mean, that's something that just comes, like I said, with time. You realize what's important and what's not, and it's really just a balancing act. And in the first 6 weeks, you really will find a pattern. I've now have like a routine down with the people on my floor. We eat dinner this time, we hang out for this much time, and then homework's for that time. So you're gonna find that it's a weird feeling, just like everybody's just on such different schedules and stuff, but you're gonna find what works for you. And I mean, I talk to my mom at least, like, we call each other once a day. I mean, I do get homesick even though I'm only 30 minutes away. She does get worried. I do live in North Philadelphia, but I've never felt like, people may say, like, oh, you live in North Philly, it's such a dangerous area. You're in a city, so any city school, you have to be careful of where you are and your surroundings, but Temple does do a really good job at keeping it very safe, very friendly. You know, I could spit out some tour guide facts for you, but the 600 cameras and the 68 call boxes, but I mean, it's something like that, but it is something that you'll get used to. Every school you have to deal with that, and it's just something to keep in mind. But I mean, if you guys have any questions, I think we're going to ask them later, but that's just a brief overview. Time flies. I'm so sad my freshman year's over. I want to do it all over again because I love it that much. So, Mike, it's up to you.
That was really good. I can draw a lot of parallels with Gemma's experience. I think a lot of what she said is true about, all college experiences. So that was really good. First, I'd like to say I'm really happy to just speak in front of a bunch of Radnor High School people. Radnor High School is great. I can tell you that your students will definitely be very well prepared for college. I found that I was very well prepared, probably more so than some of my other students. And I thank Mr. Skellinger for that. And the teachers at Radnor are just great. I think it was also rated like third most posh school. Did you see that? Yeah. So that's good too. So yeah, I agree with a lot of the things Gemma said. Also, the panel. I tend to think that adults don't really know what they're talking about when it comes to college. But hearing the panel talk, just everything they said was spot on. And I remember going to these type of things when I was a high school student, and I was like, they don't really know what they're talking about. But really, like everything they said was spot on. All those things are true and should be taken very seriously. And all the things about like being your own advocate, you really need to do those things, and time management and things with like alcohol and stuff on campus. All of that is very true, and so I think the panel did a very good job taking care of all those topics. I guess some things unique to myself. I probably won't go into much detail. My friends tell me I tend to ramble when I speak, so some things unique to my experience. Go to Swarthmore. It's a small liberal arts school, 1,600 students, so it's only about 400 more than Radnor High School, which I didn't want at first, but I love it. I am a physics major. I'm considering going pre-med. I play soccer at Swarthmore on the varsity team. That's been a really good experience. I'm very involved with the Christian Fellowship on Swarthmore's community. That's something that's pretty important to me. And then I'm also involved in another club. Being at college is very different, and the transition definitely is tough. I was lucky; my first semester was pass-fail, so I didn't need to worry too much about my grades. But it was a really good learning experience for me. Basically, in the first semester, I learned exactly what not to do in terms of time management. Staying up a lot, hanging out with my friends all day, and staying up to 3 or 4 doing homework. And basically, what Gemma said, a lot of it is just trial and error. You figure things out. It's tough. Classes were very tough for me at first. I had a bunch of friends who were actually failing in pass-fail, so that does happen. And there was one class that I was not doing well in, and as I forget who said it, but I was one of those students who was too stubborn to get help. So this semester, I'm meeting going to office hours for my math class once a week. I've had private meetings with 2 of my other 3 professors, and the last one I've talked to through email a couple times. And so academically, you really do need to be your own advocate, and you need to kind of swallow your pride a little bit and realize that that help is available, and you should definitely use that. And then I guess socially, I personally I don't drink, so that kind of makes my college experience a little unique compared to most students. But socially, the first you guys said 6 weeks, and I think that's very true. Being in such a small school, I felt like the social groups kind of started to form earlier. So it was like 3 or 4 weeks in, you see the same groups just going together all the time. I guess something I could say about that is getting connected to the community, I think that was a really good point. If you involve yourself in the things that you're really passionate about, then, those are the people, you're going to want to spend your time with. Like, I spend time with people on my soccer team because I'm passionate about soccer, and, they like to talk about that, and, we share that common bond. Share that same bond with my Christian fellowship group, a lot with the other physics majors. It's really cool talking to them. Had some really interesting conversations just about physics, which I wasn't really expecting, but that is possible. It is possible to find school interesting. So yeah, so far college has been great. It is a change. It is difficult at times, but it is a great opportunity, and you learn a lot through the process, and it's important that you guys as parents are there for your kids. I know I call my mom too, maybe not every day. But I do call her often, and being close to home, I do visit home quite often. So, the college experience is great. You should trust that your kids are going to be independent and they're going to make their own choices. But it is very important that they have you to depend on. And I think having that foundation and knowing they have family here that love and cares for them is going to be something that just helps them get through that tough transition even more. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes. So what we're going to do now is we'll take questions for all the panelists behind us, and in order to keep us on the microphone, if you ask the question, Mark or I will repeat it so everybody can hear the question clearly, and then it will be recorded, because this evening is being recorded and will be able to be viewed later. Any questions?
I actually have a question for the last speaker. I'm not so concerned about understanding that these are all important things. I think we'll pretty much understand that. My question deals with, okay, I have one student who does step up and does make that initial, if she needs help or if she wants to join something. What about the young man who's still in high school, hasn't figured out how to get out of his comfort zone? Maybe he's in an activity, there he connects. But what about where he's struggling in something and he doesn't make that step to go see a teacher or to go to a help tutoring, or what made you change your mind? Like, what was it that finally to go for either help or advice or?
I guess to paraphrase the question, it's how to become an advocate, correct?
I mean, we know it's important. And some of our kids are advocates, but what do these parents do for those who aren't advocates? And I guess what made you, as a person who wasn't, become one?
Oh, okay, there we go. That's an interesting question. I think what caused me to reach out to my teachers and do those things was because I knew I couldn't do it without that support. So for me, it was very much like a need-based thing. I wasn't satisfied underperforming, knowing that those options were available. But it's very much a self-motivation thing. And I think that's true about all things in college. We don't have parents that are there to tell us what to do, and we don't have people in our hall necessarily that are going to say, go do this, go do that. And so it's different and it's new, but I think it has to come from the student's own motivation, because if my mom was calling me every day and saying, Mike, you just gotta go talk to all your professors, I'd be like, oh, whatever, I mean, so for it to really mean anything to myself, it had to come through my own motivation. I hope that helps.
Other questions?
Is there a general rule of thumb, this is for anyone on the panel, not students, about, you had mentioned some kind of form that the student could sign where a parent can get health information. Do you recommend that? How does one deal with that? If someone describe that process to me.
So in general, if anybody could describe the process of the consent form for FERPA.
At Penn State, generally when the consent form comes up is there's a problem, somebody has a medical issue, someone's having a roommate issue, and the parent wants to be kept informed, and we're not able to do that right away under FERPA. So then we will say to the student, your mother and or father and or guardian wants to sign a release, will you sign that for them? Or the parent might just say to the student, get in there and sign a release. But ultimately it's the student's decision. Those releases at Penn State are, I'm going to be able to talk to you about the ongoing roommate issue. I'm going to be able to talk to you. Generally, we don't have large blanket releases. They're kind of on a case-by-case basis. Medical records might be different with the school nurse, the physician, and the doctors that come into campus. But generally, it's a case-by-case. I would suggest if they have some medical needs, that be done up front.
That's what I was curious. Can you go in up front for medical because, an accident can happen or whatever. So.
Yeah, I would say to talk to your children about it at the forefront of everything, but that includes grades and bills and everything, because when they turn 18, they have the privacy. And it's a beautiful thing, but the way, personally, the way I approach it with my son is that, we're partners in this, and I respect your privacy, but if we're going to be partners in this, then, those are certain things that we want to be a part of. And you have to, they are 18, and the universities and colleges are held by that. And but again, that communication and why you want to do this.
And I would just add the medical component. At least at Villanova, I believe at most health centers, there's health records you need to submit in advance of admittance or matriculation at the university. And part of our process is allowing a student to sign off on allowing a parent to be in touch about medical issues. So that's prior to even they get to campus, at least for our campus.
And just a little tip real quick, parents will say, if you don't show me the grades, I won't pay the bill. So you can put that in your back pocket.
I'll start here. Yes, sir? The question is about a blanket release.
I think some of it's driven by state law and some of it's driven by institutional issues, but no, there wasn't a blanket, issue when I dealt with it, and again, because it's billing, it's academic, it's health, they're different venues, so there isn't a quote unquote blanket.
They are legally adults.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't make up the rule.
It's not a very strange arrangement between two people.
And not to dispute it, I think a power of attorney does go to a particular topic or... Mr. Hazen?
Time management was
think, again, to paraphrase the question, balanced, healthy living, and how do orientation programs address that, the non-academic health areas?
Since that is largely my role at Villanova, that's sort of the area I do it year-round on campus, and we do that starting with orientation. There's a large program that's delivered to 500 students at a time, and then there are conversations that happen in orientation led by those orientation counselors, so it's a peer-to-peer conversation. That's largely focused on common health issues and concerns that you might encounter in your 4 years, and then where you would go if you had questions or concerns. Throughout their 4 years, my office facilitates workshops. We have one-on-one opportunities where students can come in and evaluate their sleep time and stress and develop personalized strategies for dealing with that. We have students who train to lead presentations all year round. They're called peer educators that also lead programs. And then also we have some overlap with other areas like counseling center, student health, who also provide treatment services as well, so students might take advantage of that. But I could go on, I could present for another hour, probably on all the different things that we might do, and I would say I'd be happy to speak more to those, informally afterwards as well. But we deliver it in so many ways through the residence halls, the fitness centers, but we're very focused on those 6 dimensions of health and making sure that they're learning how to balance.
Just press the button. Oh, there you go. At Westchester, with our orientation, one of the sessions during our one-day orientation for students is a panel on student success, and one of our staff members from the Health and Wellness Center is there, and a portion of what she talks a little bit about are some tips related to kind of taking care of yourself and some things like that, about healthy eating, getting enough sleep, keeping yourself well so you don't get sick. Just a couple tips about things along those lines. And similar to Villanova, during the academic year, that our Health and Wellness Center puts on different workshops, programs. They're a great resource for students on all different issues about health and wellness. So they get that out there. They do different stress reduction programs during high stress times for students, like at the end of the year. So they will hopefully make healthier choices to help relieve stress than making choices that will get them into trouble. So we try and have different options out there.
And on the back end of that question, if there is speaking for my residence life office, and I think most of them are the same, if a student does need to seek urgent care or emergency room, our staff who's in the residence halls takes care of it. Is it emergency? Do they need to go by ambulance? Is it called? Do they need a ride home? Do they have a friend going with them? Do they want us to go with them? Did they schedule follow-up care when they get back? So for students that are far from home, that's sometimes good to know if your student's going to be 2 hours away, that those are some services that Residence Life provides at 2 in the morning.
Go here. Yes, ma'am.
I think some of you mentioned causes for dropping out. I think I've heard in the past couple of years that there might be increase in transferring, requesting transferring in the first 2 years of college than there were maybe when we all went to school. Can anybody comment on the causes of that?
So to paraphrase, it's transferring universities in this day and age.
We read applications online, so I just spent the last 2 days reading transfer applications. We get about 2,000 students who apply to be fall transfers. We used to do it twice a year. We just do it in the fall. And the reasons are dramatic and vary so much from academic rigor to social to I changed my mind and want a different type of school. Again, the reasons are really broad. Or the awakening that occurs after a year or a semester of a certain institution that they thought it was something that they've evolved as a person. So the reasons for transferring are all over the board. The ability to transfer at any school, though, the students have to be in good academic standing, and that's sometimes really difficult if you're in a school and you're not successful to get some good academic credentials under your belt to be able to move on to another institution. So if your son or daughter isn't happy at their current institution, to keep their eye on the prize of that, where do you want to go to, and not lose heart, because usually you have to be at a school a full year and be in good academic standing to be able to transfer. So.
Mike, okay, you played soccer, so I'm curious to know, what your schedule was during the season.
Again, to paraphrase the questions about time management, especially with regard to varsity athletics.
During the season, I was probably not the best about my time. There were weeks where I was very good, but there were weeks that I weren't. The weeks that I was very good, I guess what that looks like is generally the class schedules. You'll find little like pieces of time, like 30 minutes or like an hour between two classes. And as an athlete, you need to not waste those little pieces of time away, because it's very, very easy to do. So you need to take those like 20 minutes, those hour segments, and make the most of that. It also means you need to make some sacrifices socially. There's a lot of weekends where I would, even now, where I just have to basically stay in my room all weekend and do work, because that's just a sacrifice you need to make if you want to commit to something like that. But it is manageable. You just need to be willing to make sacrifices, and if those sacrifices aren't made during the day, they either come out in your grades or they come out in your health. You're not getting the sleep or what you need. Outside of the regular season, when I wasn't practicing regularly, for the first week or so, I felt like I had all the time in the world, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what it was, whether I was wasting time or what. But I found out I was just as busy as I was before. So I think athletics and any activity or group your child regularly does is very useful in budgeting time. So I would suggest not shying away from the things your child is passionate about, because they're afraid of time loss. In many situations, that may actually help them, be a better student. So yeah.
Any question? Yes, ma'am.
I've heard some statistics from coaches that athletes, student athletes who stay within 4 hours of their home when they choose a college are generally have a lower dropout rate. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I was wondering if you have any statistics on the success of students that first year nutrition, depending on how far they go from home.
The statistic that was asked about was for a college athlete who is within 4 hours of home.
That there's a greater success rate.
Let me guess that the coach recruiting was from a school within 4 hours of home.
I'll just talk in general about athletics. Obviously, looking at me, I'm the athlete of the group. But athletic department, within those first 6 weeks, that's when they're getting together. They're making that instant connection. They have a team feeling. And athletics, a lot of the division sports, they have study groups. They'll all sit down as a team. So I don't know about the 4 hour mark, but I know athletes, there are benchmarks that they have to hit, and they do study as a group, they work as a group, so there's that instant family there, and they're doing something they love.
I think just quickly speaking as a parent, there was a talk about getting that connection. If someone is on a team, they immediately have that connection.
And from personal experience, I was a college athlete. I was a college athlete for 3 years, and freshman year was by far the most challenging because I carried 18 credits. I had to get out in 4 years. That was my dad's. My dad said he'd pay for it if I got done in 4, so I stuck with that, and I was out in 4. But to do that, we had mandatory study hours once a day, and they were an hour and a half. You have to keep a certain GPA to be eligible in NCAA ruling. Our coach was a little different. You could not miss class. You had to have a medical note to miss class from the medical doctor or from your trainer. You had to be there. You had to be on time regardless of when your game was over the night before, no matter how late practice went, no matter where you were. We were so regimented that there wasn't time that first freshman year. That was mandated, and it ended. It was the first 8 weeks of the season, and I played basketball, which is a relatively long season. So coming in and having that immediately, I will say, one, makes things, because you have 15, 12, 15, 11, however big the team is, automatic friends. Whether you like them all or not, they're still your friends. And they're there to work you through, because you have everything from upperclassmen to freshman year. So, but it's any activity. I mean, Gemma's in the marching band, and the commitment that goes into that is, you can talk about that, because that's far different than what it would be to be an athlete.
Going off of that, marching band, we did move in a week earlier than everyone else did on campus, so the other freshmen. So I was living in my floor. Basically, there was 2 other people that are in marching band with me. And so you, like Mrs. Butler said, automatic friends, because who else are you going to hang out with? There's only 2 people. And then, so yeah, but they are like the nicest people. And then doing band, we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 3 hours, and then Saturdays, 7 a.m., you're on a field in your uniform, and then you're not back at Temple till 3 p.m. So it is a super big commitment. And there's 185 members of the Diamond Marching Band, and some of them are now my best friends. Because you do spend so much time together, you eat together. Just like any athlete, you eat your meals together when you're practicing, you hang out with them when you're not practicing. And I've been really lucky to become friends with everybody on my floor and then my marching band friends. So I feel like I have the best of both worlds. And I actually traveled on a trip called American Music Abroad when I was a freshman in high school. And I actually got to know a couple people then. We were still maybe Facebook friends, but then when I got to Temple, there's about a handful of them that are now with me in marching band as a freshman too. So it really is a connection that automatically getting involved like that automatically gets you involved with friends, because even if I felt uncomfortable in the first couple weeks, maybe meeting friends in my building or something like that, I always had my friends from any activity like band or something like that to go hang out with in that like awkward phase when you're trying to meet people.
We have time. We have 5 minutes left, so we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Yes.
Swarthmore isn't particularly noted as a big drinking and partying school, so it was pretty interesting to hear you say that you feel, even at Swarthmore, feels somewhat unique because you don't drink. And I know all colleges now, or almost all, make such great efforts to provide all sorts of alternatives. You know, all sorts of things going on Friday and Saturday night, you know, alternatives to drinking and partying and drugs. So despite all those efforts, why, and again, I'll point out that Swarthmore is not on the Princeton Review's top 20 drinking and partying schools, far from it. It's probably on the, you know, the other end of the spectrum. Why it is still such a problem at almost every school.
So to summarize, the question is, why is drinking and drugs such a problem at colleges and universities?
I think you're all going to ask me the question, so it's an historic question. It's been around forever, but I think, is it that we're doing a better job at highlighting the issue? Are we getting better at, you know, really getting at the core issue and not just seeing that these kids are dropping off? I think that's more of it than, you know, a lot of minimization has gone on for a long time. So people are really recognizing it as an issue and as a problem. So I don't think that it's more of a problem. I think, yes, I talked about the impact of, you know, advertising and budgets around that and how they're targeting populations of young adults and adolescents. They're literally targeting populations of adolescents, young adults. But what I think more is our campuses and the people are more open to talk about it, where parents a lot of times would just kind of pull their kid out. It's really, you know, treatment programs and providers and schools are really educating themselves and really making sure that, you know, if there is an issue, to provide options, counseling services. Most every college campus has a drug and alcohol specialist, and so they have availability. So not just alternative options for fun, but also, if there is an issue for counseling too. So.
I also want to say that we are seeing a very slow increase in the number of students who are coming to campuses who identify as non-drinkers. So campuses are starting to get some pressure for a college experience that's not centered around alcohol. And so for many students, they want to know that there is either an alternative culture or this campus, like you're alluding to with Swarthmore, is not that kind of culture. And so I think many campuses are really trying to engage their current students and really trying to be a voice for those non-drinker students or students who drink but aren't, either their goal is not to get wasted. And so they see that there is responsible use of alcohol. And so I think many campuses, as you alluded to, are really trying to engage those students and really trying to counterculture what is being portrayed as the culture on most of our campuses. So I would say I think it's a combination of things. And campuses are much more in tune and are really trying to address the issue. And I think that definitely creates this idea that that's just what happens on college campuses.
Okay, I guess if that is it, I want to thank everyone for attending. I really want to thank the panelists for coming out, spending a night of your time with everyone. Thank you very much. I'm just going to offer this up. I think you have their names. Emails are available. If a question comes to you at some point or for us, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.